Yo, it's your boy, Seafoam Soldier. What's going on? And with me today, I've got my special Dragula friend.
Hello, it's me, Bob, from last time. This time with less pasta.
There's no pasta. It's what people know you for,
No,
Bob. It's your
unfortunately not
trademark.
this time. I know, but I'm trying to reduce the level of gluten in this Bob. So
Ah,
it's all
it's that
good.
time. It's
No,
that
I'm
time.
joking. It's more just that it's earlier today, so I it's not quite dinner time.
We've got pasta on the side looking at you, waiting to be cooked.
Of course. Oh yeah, always. I mean,
Okay, good. That's what we're looking for. That's what the crowd wants, Bob. So I've literally just finished watching this episode of Dragula. Actually, wait, before I start, because I always forget to do this, I'll do it now. What's the thing people say? Yeah, like, comment, and subscribe, please. We keep the conversation going down below. Let us know what you want to do, what you want us to do next. Let us know what you think of the episode. We'll chat to you in the comments. That's the other thing. If you're into horror stuff, which I'm guessing you are if you're watching this, got a pretty good, pretty epic horror visual novel on Steam, I'd say. Link in the description. There'll be a sale on over Christmas, so you get it for like £1 or something probably. So just recommend you get involved, But for now, it's a little sip. They get a moment to sink in. But for now, yeah, should we go? We'll go through the episode.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, where should we begin? Should we begin in kind of Sound of Music style right at the very beginning? A very good place to start.
I feel like it could be good places. Like, although I'm interested in your overall thoughts of the episode because, like, I don't think there's tons to really dissect this episode. If I'm honest, I mean, I know new looks really.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of things were drawn out longer than they could have been. So I'm just interested in your overall view of the episode as a whole.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it was still good. It was still a very nice 40 minutes of entertainment and visuals and whatever else you want. But yeah, I see what you mean. I think partly because it's a double episode, some of the it kind of naturally has a starting point that's slightly different from other episodes. And yeah, I guess a lot of it was, I think, a bit drawn out. I think, like we were saying for the last episode, it would have been too much for a 40 or 50-minute episode, but I think it's not necessarily enough for an hour and a half or an hour and 20 minutes as it would be for 240s. So yeah, it's a strange one, but still, I thought it was still really fun. And there are some great moments that I'm kind of looking forward to dissecting as well.
Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, let's start at the beginning then. So it starts with them having a conversation in the little tent area, right?
Yeah, and carrying on from before, this time they have Vanda with them. Well, for a little bit of it, and it's a bit more recappy. They are talking about they're still carrying on with their journeys. Through, I mean, obviously it is a journey for them. They've been kind of cooped up doing this for God knows how long, and it's obviously very intense and very strange in its own way. But it does still make me laugh that it still has this. You can almost hear like Hopipola by Sigur Rós playing in the background. This like kind of victory moment
Yeah,
of all of them together. But yeah, at the same
yeah.
time, I thought it was really great. And it's kind of fun seeing how they take to it. If I'm honest, I feel like James's answers were a little bit pageant, as in kind of, or like a little bit Miss World, kind of like everything is fine and I love everyone, which was a bit, I don't know, I felt was a bit at odds with how James had been through a lot of the series, but at the same time, a lot of what James was saying was kind of right, but also I was a bit
Interesting.
on some
I know. So
parts.
I feel like it's a continuation from what was going on last episode, where
Yeah.
I mean, he said, I actually like quote, like I think I've written down quotes from it. Like I say think because I was trying to write as he's saying and watch. I can't multitask pretty much, but he was saying stuff like, "I'm not a bitch or a cunt, and I've learned to like shed the bitchiness away." And
Yeah.
then bitch pudding also said, "Oh, James has really changed." But literally just before all this, he was still coming for a Bora. Like he was like,
Yeah.
"I didn't get your look. I don't really understand what you're trying to do." And obviously all of last episode as well, where he was coming pretty hard for a Bora and yeah, just generally. So I mean, I think as a viewer myself, I haven't really noticed like this big evolution of change in terms of change of behavior from James.
I don't think so necessarily. I feel like straight out the gate, James was very straightforward with who James was, and I feel like that hasn't necessarily changed. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think James is still a fierce competitor, but I think as one of the Boulet brothers mentioned to James, like, or either in deliberation or mentioned to James's face, I can't remember which, said, we've got to kind of lose some of that that attitude, you know, that whoever wins the title will also be having to work with a lot of people, and they're going to have to be able to interact with a lot of people in a way that where they come across quite well, and that's potentially a challenge for James, but I mean, not one that James probably couldn't rise to.
Yeah, I was just thinking as you were saying that, like, he comes for Bora the whole time, but I wonder if it was like any group of people, whether there'd be someone he'd come for, or whether it really is just specifically a Bora that rubs in the wrong way for whatever reason. Because to me, I don't know, it seems like he does just have a bit of an attitude problem generally, but it's hard to tell, I guess.
Yeah, I felt the same, because I did wonder if it was just targeted at Abora, but then there are other times when it did feel like it was targeted at other people. Like Abora seemed like an easy scapegoat because Abora was kind of on the verge, you know, very much on the periphery, looked like she might go out anytime soon. So I feel like in some ways she was a weak, like an easy target for James, and so I do wonder if that was kind of it. But I mean, that it's interesting, isn't it, though, that the bitch picked up on James having changed, because that maybe says something. Like if other queens are noting it, then maybe I
actually thought about that quite a lot as I was watching it, and I mean, again, it's something I think we said last episode, in that I think a lot isn't shown on camera, and obviously a lot happens out, like they're not confined to a hotel room, they can hang out outside of the show, outside of filming, sorry. So like, I guess that could well be the case, but at the same time, I was sort of, like thinking about this is in my mind throughout the episode, and the sort of confessionals to the camera, they all seem super staged to me. Like, I think just generally the show seems like the production on it, in terms of producers leading them in what to say, is more obvious generally. But I wonder, like, how much of the confessionals to the camera at all are like organic sort of thing. I don't know. Like, I bet the producer's probably like, "Oh, bitch, do you think James has changed throughout the course of the competition? Do you think she's chilled out or something like that?" And then bitch is probably like, "Yeah, I think she has." I don't know. But
Yeah.
that's just like a guess. I don't know.
I agree. I think what I find really strange about them is there's always, it doesn't feel like they're in the middle of like a flow and kind of coming up with these things as they're talking. It feels a bit very much like kind of you know, you can almost see like the couple of seconds pause and then bitch going, "Yes, we won! Oh my god!" And you're like, "Hang on, like it feels very much like, okay, and tell me now we need a positive reaction. How did you feel about your performance of this?" I don't know. It's a bit strange for me, but
I know. I especially noticed it as well. I think it was before the fight when Victoria's like, or afterwards, afterwards, like, she's some sort of like, she said something like some sort of like weird like battle cry to like the camera, but in terms in the confessional, and like it just seemed like really weird. Like a producer literally gone like, "You're about to go on, you know, you're about to go into the fight. What do you want to say? Like, what's your battle cry?" And then she did it. You know, like, do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the nature of kind of reality style TV anyway. But I mean, it's something that I kind of thought Dragula was going to kind of avoid a little bit more. But I mean, it's kind of what we got. But at the same time, yeah, occasionally it does rankle, because for me, it kind of takes away sometimes from the kind of
Immersion?
more organic, as you said. Yeah, absolutely. You know, instead of being able to dunk your head straight into a boiling pot of Dragula, sometimes you know, it forces you. This metaphor is getting a bit convoluted, but sometimes
your head. It's the only metaphor you understand.
I think. Oh yeah, God, it is, isn't it? God, my life is pasta. I mean, that's not a bad thing, but like,
that's a good life. That's a good life.
Yeah, I can live with that.
But also, I feel like we are nitpicking more because, I mean, obviously, compared to the first season where there was a lot of massive things wrong with it, I feel like the criticisms we have now definitely don't make it unwatchable. It's more just like there's a lot of really, really great content with the show. It's a shame that this sort of stuff brings it down a little bit. Like it could be, like I stand by what I said. I do think this season has been more enjoyable to watch than season 9 of Drag Race. But it's a shame, like it could just like reach another level if it weren't for like a few little things that just aren't quite there yet, in my opinion. Also, on that note, the audio quality of the confessionals seems really poor to me in comparison. Have you noticed? Bob? Wait, am I still live?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay, no, it's on my side. No, you briefly froze, and I just got like a kind of slightly startled Grant face staring at me.
Sorry about that. I don't know if it's my connection. Sorry, did you hear my whole thing about the audio quality of the confessionals?
Yeah, so I heard the first part at least. I found it a bit tinny and at times, which is kind of funny because coupled with what we were saying about those couple of seconds of silence and the
Mm.
little kind of thing. I mean, it's kind of funny. I do kind of love it. It does add to that kind of kitsch element of it all to me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And also, I don't know if this is jumping ahead too much. But also when they were having their chat with Vanda started talking about the future of the show. And that I thought that might be kind of interesting with what we were just saying in terms of Vanda said about, you know, um, Vanda would love to see it hitting a bigger audience, but keeping that same essence. And she was saying that the Boulets being in charge of it would ensure that would happen. That you wouldn't lose that quality because you've got the Boulets there, and they are at the heart of it, and they have that kind of value for what they want it to mean to be. But yeah, I mean, because I did think that, because actually, although the quality in filming and in audio and everything else has jumped massively between the two seasons, actually the shows are still very from season 1 to season 2, it's still very similar, which is good. Like, it's kept that core element, and I do wonder, I mean, hopefully that will keep that for the future. But yeah, we shall see.
Yeah, I think it's difficult. I think that's what Rue says about Drag Race a lot as well. Like, it's supposed to be for people on the outskirts of society, but obviously it's become quite a mainstream TV show now. So as long as it keeps the essence of, I think with Rue at the helm of Drag Race, for example, I think it will keep that at its core. I think it's similar to Dragula in the, like the Boulets and Vanda were talking about, right? Unless it was like from somewhere else, I'm like confusing the two, about how they want to keep the team as small as possible, and they were saying that, right?
I can't remember that from this episode or from this season, but
Really, I don't know where I would have got that from. I think Vanda was saying, like most shows have like 20 producers, and it sort of loses its essence.
sorry, yeah. Mhm.
But yes, if it's just like the Boulets and Vanda, and maybe like that's gonna, it will still have the same sort of core intent, I guess. I think the Boulets are quite sort of, it's similar to Brew, quite like steadfast in their vision
Yeah.
for the show and what they want it to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of quite hopeful it will just continue to get better in the right ways. But on this sort of note, it's jumping ahead a little bit, but my biggest gripe with this whole episode, and it's something we touched on last episode, but I think this episode is the biggest culprit of it. Like, I feel like I guess it relates because we're talking about production and editing or whatever. And I feel like it just wasted a lot of time. They basically just covered all the same points twice. So the Boulet brothers had this chat with Vanda. We went through all the queens and their views on all the queens. And then it did exactly the same thing again, but with the queens there. Like, it was literally all the same points. I don't think there were any new points I picked up on. And I'm just like, it literally spent about 5-10 minutes on it the first time, and then about 5-10 minutes on it again the second time. And it was just completely unnecessary repeated content, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, because when I was making little notes, I wrote down the first bit where the Boulet brothers were talking with Vanda, and I had that under like a little heading of deliberation, and then as it said on screen, and then normally that would kind of still be deliberation when it's with the queens, or kind of feedback or whatever, I don't know. But the I don't know, I kind of didn't really add any notes when that came round, apart from just people's reactions to stuff, because I didn't really think there wasn't really as much, as you said, like not much had necessarily changed. I mean, there were a few extra little bits just in terms of obviously finding out who won the challenge, and finding out in terms of like little things like the fact that they were talking about, often they were laying, they were saying, oh, I love this queen, and then when they were in front of them, they were like, I love this queen. One small tip I would give would be to bitch. But yeah, I mean, a lot of what they said about Abora and then to Abora were pretty much a lot of that was exactly the same, I thought.
Yeah. I think it's because, like, with my job, I have to think a lot about like data redundancy, like not repeating information. And so something I'm genuinely always on the lookout for, like reducing that sort of thing. And I think watching it, it's just like, or maybe I'm just looking at it from that perspective. I don't know if most people would have picked up on that, but I don't know. I was just quite frustrated, like watching the same thing twice, I'd say. And okay, let's start. Sorry, I have something else I was going to say, but let's just start at the beginning and go through the episode.
Sure. So we've already started speaking a little bit about them chatting in the tent, and then I guess fairly soon after we move on to them about to give the performance. Are we jumping too far ahead to move on to the performance?
No, I think that's it. The only note I had about their discussion was about James's sort of journey she says she's been on.
Yeah, same pretty much. I think everything else. The only one other thing I was going to say on that is actually that Abora, I couldn't quite tell because Abora seemed really positive, but then also incredibly defeated at the same time. I don't know quite how you balance both of those emotions.
Interesting.
But yeah, there was a lot of kind of like Abora seemed defeated, but then positive about like bringing that back. But then also the defeatedness was also hampering the positivity. I don't know, it was strange. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, but I think that's been true for quite a few episodes. That same kind of Abora kind of emotional roller coaster, really.
Yeah, no, I agree. I didn't really pick up on it myself at the beginning, but like I saw how she was feeling as the episode progressed, definitely. So yeah, you're right to pick up on that. But yeah, so in terms of the performance itself, I guess this is sort of like an in between the performance and the discussion. We got to see Bitch's makeup properly, like the final version of it without the mask on. What are your thoughts of like that / the final look, I guess, without the mask and the props?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as I said for the last episode, I adored Bitch's look, and so I was actually quite excited to see the makeup underneath. And obviously, bits of it were a little. When the first time we saw it, it was a little bit smudged and a little bit blurred, partly because that was Bitch taking it off for parts of it. But I actually really liked what was underneath. I liked that kind of grayish hue that she had to her makeup. And I thought it kind of worked quite nicely with the rest of the look. I think she changed a few little details, like I think the wig slightly changed or something. She still had that chain, and I've got some thoughts on that chain for the actual performance itself. But yeah, I thought it was really nice actually seeing Bitch's look. Parts of it looked, I think, because obviously because Bitch needed to move. So I just now started singing "Move, Bitch, Get Out of the Way" in my head. But because Bitch needed to move on stage, I guess the costume changed slightly. You know, the sword was put away. I felt like things got a bit shorter, but maybe that's just me. Maybe I didn't notice how short they were the first time, but it felt very much a much more comfortable version of that outfit, and it still looked great in my opinion. Not as amazing as kind of appearing from behind this sand dune with a sword, and like, but I still thought it looked great, and I was still there for it entirely.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I think that's fair. I think it's just a personal preference thing. Like I know. I guess like I stand by my thoughts in it last episode. Like I think it was good overall, but I feel like it was probably without the mask and like the constant props. I think it was probably in my personal weakest of the bunch.
Mm-hmm.
But that might just be because my thoughts on James' outfit have changed a little bit as the episode sort of progressed. Like I guess like it doesn't really matter, not skipping too far ahead. But when she talked about like all the small details on her outfit, like Listerine and stuff like that, I'm like that's really cool. And all the stuff like on the backpack from the previous challenges, like that made me like the outfit a lot more. But obviously I understand like you shouldn't have to be given context. Like you shouldn't have to have the outfit explained to you. But like I just did like it more after she did explain it. So that sort of gave her the edge for me.
Definitely, and I think I noticed a few details that I hadn't noticed before as well, like the skull on her, the skull on her crotch.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Which I don't think I'd noticed before, or if I had, I'd repressed that memory. But I just thought she was, kind of. It was definitely a more interesting look than I'd given it credit for, I think.
Exactly. That's exactly how I feel. I still stand by it. I still think it was the most like typically Mad Max, but it was still more. It was more nuanced than I gave it credit for.
And also on that note, because for the last one, I said that I'd kind of partly forgotten Victoria's outfit. This time, I totally noticed it, and I was like, "How did I miss this?" Because it was incredible, and I spent a lot more time looking at it this time. And I think actually Victoria's, for me, from this was maybe one of the stronger looks. When I looked at it a bit more,
I totally agree.
I think I'd kind of missed a lot of it before. I think all I'd really seen was all I really focused on before was the face paint and the Mohican, both of which are great. And I don't think I actually gave them enough credit either. But this time, I thought it was fantastic.
It's strange, really, because I suppose for this sort of challenge, it's the finer details on the costumes that are more important, sort of thing. And they needed to take that time to go through them all. And it's good they did, because it made me look at like I said, like we didn't really have a chance necessarily to focus on all the finer points of Victoria's outfit either previously. So I get why you would have not been focusing on the not striking parts of it. but once you did, I don't know, like I think it was good of them to do that. But also, it's a bit strange to have to have done that at the same time, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think, yeah, I don't really know. I mean, in fairness, last time was partly distracted by pasta as well, so I will still use that. But at the same time, I think, yeah, I mean, in that sense, I'm really glad that it was a double episode, because if this had all happened in one episode, I would have totally missed Victoria, which is a shame. Because actually, I was thinking, I mean, again, this might be jumping ahead, but Victoria's been one who ha I've been kind of vaguely aware of her for most of the process. Like really early on, I was a big fan, and then she kind of, for me, drifted a little bit into the middle and kind of. I mean, not her looks. Like her looks are still incredible, but in terms of people were outperforming her.
Yeah, I
And
totally agree. Sorry, go on. What are you saying?
oh no, and so basically, yeah, it's kind of. I was thinking actually, it's not. I mean, it's not weird that she's in the top because she deserves that. But it is kind of strange in the sense that she hasn't, like James and Bitch have pretty much been sharing the wins between them for most of the last few weeks, with Abora getting one recently. But Victoria kind of, forgive me if I'm wrong, because I don't know when her last win was. Maybe it was more recent than I think. But she's not drifted by any means. It's just that she's in a field with some very, very strong competitors.
I mean, I think it ties to my main point about her. We are sort of jumping around, but I don't think that really matters because, again, I don't think there's tons of like set content in this episode, if that makes sense. Like, there are no like set massive events really, apart from, I don't know. So I think it's right to jump around. Plus, we critiqued them we gave our thoughts on last episode, so I think it's fair. But yeah, I think my biggest critique of Victoria is I love a lot of her looks she's done this season. Most of her looks I think is awesome, and I think she's a cool person from what I've seen. But I feel like she's not fully exposed herself on the show. I feel like she's still, to me, she seems reserved. I mean, obviously in her performances, but also just as a personality. Like, I think because of that, it'd be a shame. But if that doesn't change, I can't see me remembering her in like a year or two's time, just because there's no like standout part of her personality. Like, I mean, obviously this is an extreme, but like you compare like Laganja or Gia Gunn or something like that. Like, you have to have a strong personality in Drag Race or these sort of shows, reality TV shows, I guess, to form like you need to form a connection with the audience through the TV sort of thing. And I don't feel like I know her at all or have any sort of connection with her.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if that's because of the amount of screen time she's been given or whatever, but I I think as well early on, definitely, and I think the nature of Dracula as well is at least with how they edit is, or at least, well, this has changed a little bit since the first season. But I remember for a lot of the first season, I didn't know the difference between some of the queens because their names didn't always come up on screen, and they didn't necessarily say their names a lot. And so I remember I used to get quite confused. And Victoria was one who quite early on I kept on forgetting which one she was.
Yeah.
I remember the look individually. I just couldn't always pair a name with her. And I think it was only. So, like, I think that's almost partly why for me occasionally she comes up and I'm like, oh yes, that was her. Like, and I'm still really glad that she's in the top there, but it's yeah, it's a strange one. And so I feel yeah, I mean, but I mean, that said, her performance I remembered this time a bit more
Well,
because
you
I
can't
think
really not remember. There's only four of them. I feel like it shouldn't have
that's
to get to
true.
a point where there's only like a couple other people on stage for you to be remembered, you know? And again, I guess this is
Yeah.
just like personal, like, you know, she could have resonated super strongly with some people, you know? If you're watching this and you have a different opinion of, you know, Victoria than we've had throughout the season, then let us know in the comments. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear. But that's just my take on her sort of thing. Again, it's not negative. It's just, I mean, everyone's got different personality, I guess. And I think her looks have been really strong. I think she's a cool person from what I've seen. It's just, yeah, I just don't feel any sort of like, to me, she's not going to be memorable because she is missing that sort of vulnerability is a wrong word. She don't need vulnerability necessarily, but like I said, like, I guess the ability, like, I don't feel like I really know her. I can't think of a better way to phrase that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I do wonder how much of that is partly bits of editing as well. I mean, because I think when she is on camera, I mean, I don't always necessarily remember her as well. So I don't think it's just the editing. But I mean, even just in that performance, I don't know if I'm right on this, but for me, it felt like Abora and Victoria were hardly featured in the actual performance in terms of the shots we saw of them, because I feel like we saw a lot of Bitch, we saw a lot of James, and at one point
Okay.
there was a thing of 3 of them on stage, and Abora was off to one side, and she was kind of cut off essentially from the shot, and that happened a few times, and she was basically getting a bit of a like Michelle from Destiny's Child treatment for a little bit. Poor Michelle. But or kind of Latavia perhaps here, because there are 4 of them. But yeah, it was just, I did find it a bit strange at times, but I don't know. Also, maybe that's me misreading it. Maybe that's because the camera naturally gravitated towards James doing a crowd dive.
I think it's the same with lip syncs in Drag Race. Like, you have to like earn the camera sort of thing. Like, you have to sort of flirt with the camera and charm the camera and make it worthwhile for them to record you. You know, like I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's probably more down to the actual performance of the queens themselves, I'd say. I don't know. It's hard to know, really.
Yeah, and I think it's that kind of double-edged sword, isn't it? In the well, not double-edged swords. That's not the right phrase. It's a bit of it's a tale of both, really, isn't it? Because if you've not necessarily got the most striking character, you might not feature on camera as much, and then the producers might think, actually, you know, they're not giving us as many big moments, so we should probably focus on those who are giving us the big moments. So I guess it kind of snowballs a little. But at the same time, I thought, I mean, Victoria, even though it was a very short, what I felt was a very short bit on camera, I did think she did serve it.
Well, let's step back a second. So, what did you think of the performance overall?
Okay, brutal honesty, I didn't necessarily get it. I thought there were some great moments, but at times, I don't know, part of me felt it was a bit awkward, in the sense that if you weren't like the person at the front, at least at the beginning part, I felt like everyone was just kind of doing like little side kind of like, yeah, this is a great song. Really live my life in this concert. And I was a bit like, because I remember just at one point looking over, and I think it was when Victoria was on stage, like at the front of the stage. It was her moment. It's her moment. And the really weird thing for me was just that I just kind of saw like Bitch and James kind of being like, yeah, and Abora was off the screen. But it's just like, for the first part, I mean, it built up, but I don't know, it just felt a bit awkward in parts for me. I still thought it was good overall. I don't know whether it was the angle it was shot at, whether it was just this specific part of the song, because later on it was a lot more intense, but it felt very, I don't know, it was, I can't quite put my finger on it.
I don't disagree. See, I only wrote 2 notes. Again, this is like one of my issues with this episode generally. Again, I agree with you overall. I think it was, you know, an entertaining watch, but I don't really have any notes to write about like the 2 main events, which were the performance and the cage fight thing. So the performance, I just wrote pretty bland, not cohesive. Like,
yeah,
I didn't like it was fine. Like, it was fine. There wasn't anything particularly bad about it. Like, there wasn't anything particularly outstanding about it. If I was there watching it, I'm sure I would have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But like, it was just, yeah, I think compared to like the previous music challenge, like the rock and roll group thing, like that's far better because they all work together as a team. Like, I don't think that's their fault in this occasion, or I think it's a song, like the way the song was set up. Like, I don't know, it was just like, I agree. I think it was a little bit awkward. I think it went on too long. Again, it wasn't. I'm not saying it was bad. It was just a bit like meh for me. And I don't really have much to say about it. It was just sort of there. It happened. It was fine.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't really make me think any differently about anyone.
No.
Like,
same here. I thought Abora at least showed that she could do the stage thing without having that kind of drunk, chaotic element that she was criticized for last time.
But then she has shown it in previous challenges. Like, I know last episode was a bit of a like blip, but I think generally she's had really like well choreographed stage presence, and her performances it seemed to me to have been really well thought out generally.
Yeah, and I think something that Abora definitely has going for her, and this is something, I mean, it's slightly different from Vanda, but it's definitely something that I remember the Boulet brothers really liking about Vanda, and something I really love about Vanda, which is Vanda moves in a very serpentine, very almost unnatural kind of way that I adore. It's this kind of...
love that.
Yeah, and I thought Abora actually has that same thing, but not in the exact same way as Vanda, but in more of a kind of... Okay, so I actually wrote down the note... trickster woodland sprite, because that's kind of how I see Abora. Like, she's kind of this shaman, not quite shaman, but this very kind of mythological sprite kind of character who I imagine being like a little trickster in the woods who is part of like a myth or a fairy tale where, you know, while you're sleeping, they come and like steal something from you.
Yeah.
I feel like, and as a result, that I think that's something I really love about Abora is there's this
So
kind of witchiness to Abora that I think is great and I think has often been overlooked. And I think she brought that for her performance for the stage, but I also think she was overshadowed.
it's interesting. I got that straight away, like the first episode, but yeah, first episode of this season when she came out, you know, in that sort of way, and that's something like her characterization was so strong for me. Like I just got that, like all those sort of words and more sort of thing from her performance and her character. It all just meshed really well together. I think it was really unique, well thought out. It was like something out of like a fairy tale nightmare, and she sort of carried that through, but been able to adapt to the themes really well at the same time, which I think is extremely difficult to have a gimmick like that, like such a strong part of your character and personalize, you know, and to still be adaptable in the way she has been. I don't know. I think she's great. But on this note, so hey, John's saying he was totally wrong about a build up for an Abora win, which he's fine with. So it's interesting. I wonder if, because I feel like there's been a lot of negativity towards Abora, both from the queens and even from the judges recently. I think you said last time, right, that she's sort of similar to what's her name? I guess Elle from season 1.
Oh, Loris? Oh, that was,
Loris.
I think, more Erica, I was thinking, with Loris. But
I was thinking more Loris.
But I mean, I like Erica and Loris. I kind of feel have that kind of had some similarities. But actually, I see that with Abora too. There's this kind of slightly, like you kind of were saying, there's a slightly different set of references. And it's about Abora being able to really blend that well to the theme, because actually that nose beak thing appears in all of those looks, but comes across very differently, I think, in each one.
Exactly.
I mean, there's always something creepy about it. That's kind of the intention. But with this orange, you know, this kind of phoenix-like orange in this look, I thought that beak added something very I kind of almost imagined her as some kind of medicine woman or something, or this kind of like spooky spirit thing, as opposed to the more witchy side, or kind of dark, kind of gothic vampire creature thing that we've seen Abora in the other one. So I think that worked really well. Whereas I think actually someone like Miniki with the masks, that thing I think Miniki found harder to adapt to parts of the challenges.
I think it shows a great skill. Like, I mean, controversial. I don't know, like, if there's a point to say it's in the episode anyway. But like, she's been my favorite. I think pretty much the whole way through the season of Abora in terms of, like, again, I guess her references and her characterization, things like that. Not necessarily in terms of like personality and, you know, the stuff behind the scenes or whatever, but in terms of performances and looks, overall, she's been my favorite. And I still think, I think I said last episode she was my favorite look, and she still is. Like, I still think she had the coolest look. And again, she didn't do anything. It's really difficult for me this episode because, like, I agree with you. I don't think she stood out during her performance, but I don't think anyone really stood out. I mean, Bitches was probably the most interesting because of the smoke canister. But for me personally, like, they all did well. Like, I think they're all pretty cool. Like, I don't think any less of her because of anything this episode, you know, personally.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I expected, because you know the Boulets said that they'd get a score for their photos and a score for the live performance. I kind of expected that we'd actually see those scores in some way, or be told who maybe won the photo challenge or something. And so it was interesting for me that we didn't, because it kind of, and in some ways that makes sense because you kind of want that to be more of a surprise at the end. But I would have loved to have seen how they took to Abora's photo, because I thought Abora's was very strong. And so I would have really loved to have seen how that combined with the live performance. And yeah, because I think, despite actually like what we were saying with them repeating a lot of those comments, there was a lot they didn't mention, I feel, about the performances. They kind of just said everyone was phenomenal, and they didn't kind of go into the details of, like, I loved your stage presence, I love the way you commanded attention by doing this thing. I felt like it was just like, you were great up there. And I was like, okay, I want you to tell me why.
But do you think there really was anything to say, any particular reasons why? Because I personally...
That's true, yeah.
Didn't really see anything.
That's true, but yeah. I'm kind of glad that they picked up on something that I thought about with Bitch, which I think everyone picked up on, which is that smoke thing kind of got in the way, especially near the beginning, when she kind of flooded the whole stage with smoke, and like nobody can see you, like you know,
Yeah,
you've kind of hidden the others behind you. Now, when the smoke cleared a little bit, it was, I mean, it still worked, and I still think it was visually very strong. But I feel like it kind of, I feel like there were almost too many little swings of that thing, like a few swings at the beginning to get that smoke out,
yeah.
so that the
That's what I
smoke
was
very
thinking.
centers Bitch, because you know what happened was it kind of drowned everybody. But if there'd been a little bit of it at the beginning, I feel like Bitch would have been surrounded by this purple haze, and then would have been able to kind of recapitalize on that.
Yeah, that's like I was thinking. I think she should have twirled it twice and chucked it into the crowd, and like made like a bit of a moment over it. I don't know. I agree with you,
Yeah.
but again, I like. It still made it the most interesting performance for me, just because like her gimmicks worked out the best for me, in my opinion. Like, I don't know.
I was a
I don't
little
know.
surprised that James won it.
Yeah, yeah. So was I. But we're skipping ahead a little bit, I guess. Let's go through. Do you have anything else you want to say about the performance?
What else did I write? I think, okay, I just got a couple of other little notes. Oh, so one of them was I really loved that when the Boulay brothers walked off stage, that you could just, for like a split second, you could just see like Israel kind of like kind of walking after them and kind of slightly hunched over, like this kind of what do you call them?
Equal.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of thing. Like they're kind of henchmen. They're like, come on, Israel. And he's like, mm.
Yeah, yeah.
I really loved that. And
I
I
didn't
think
notice that. I have to watch it again.
and I think most of the other stuff I've said. Oh yeah, just the one thing is I think both James and Bitch were very good at also doing stuff at the back. Like I know at the beginning I was saying about them doing this little kind of slight like side shuffle thing, but actually near the end they were going for it, and I felt by the end Bitch was hungry for that, because she was just like really trying to move forwards, really trying to get in with the crowd. She really started to kind of, for me, command a lot more attention, and so I still don't get why she didn't win. But yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well, I suppose we can sort of talk about that, because I guess the next part chronologically is the feedback. So the deliberation slash, feedback, which we sort of talked about a bit already. I don't know. So I feel like the thing I was most surprised by is what I sort of mentioned just now, is that no one seemed that impressed with Abora. Like, I can't remember who said it, but they literally said at one point, like, she's lost her shine, and she sort of faded into the background again, both during the deliberation and to her face. And I agree with what you're saying about her attitude, like not being amazing. But I don't, like, to me, again, I don't think this is biased. I just don't. Maybe it's because to me, like, no one really stood out. I don't think she faded into the background or lost her shine. I think, like I said, I think her look was the strongest, personally. Or at least at the very least, I think it was a strong look. Even if you don't believe, don't agree that it was the strongest, I think she did really well with that. I think she did well with her performance. I didn't notice anything bad about it. Like, I don't know. Like, I didn't really agree in terms of that critique.
Yeah, I did think it was a bit harsh to kind of single out Abora as the one who was less amazing, because I did think that there were subtleties to what she was doing that were still just up there with everybody else. In fact, like I thought, I mean, any negatives I had for any of them were kind of offset by their positives, and I felt like that was true for everybody, because there were some parts of James's performance that I didn't find that interesting. Like I thought the stage dive, the what do you call it? Like the crowd surfing. Well, not quite crowd surfing, but the jump into the crowd was fun and okay, I guess. I don't know, it still felt a little bit cliche to me. I don't know. I kind of wanted, I don't know, I kind of wanted that if James went into the audience, that James would do something like, stand there and be surrounded and basically like draw everyone's attention away from the stage, but to James. That's what I thought would have, where James maybe could have taken it to the next step. But I mean, I also get with like in a place with no laws, you probably don't want to be down in like in the middle of a mob for too long. So I kind of also got that.
I do feel like James is like a doesn't give a fuck attitude. Like, he gets the rock and roll side of it, and like I don't think he really would have cared about it. I think he would have been happy to get like as filthy in as much danger as he sort of could have. I don't know.
True.
I don't know. It's a tricky one. But no, just reminded me. I really, again, this could just be personal preference, but I don't think the song was the best song choice for that event.
Right. Admittedly, I'd never heard the song before, and I kept on thinking it was going to be
I said
Decepticon by
admittedly, like, I
Latigra.
expected to have heard of that song. I don't think it was like, I don't think it's a Taylor Swift number, you know.
True. But did you think it? I kept on thinking it was about to be Decepticon by Latigra. About every 3 notes, I was just like, "It's Decepticon." No, it's not. Okay.
I
Um.
don't know a
Oh, it's
song,
a great
sorry.
song. But
Okay,
like,
send it to me
and then
after this. I'll check it out.
so I'm not sure if like most of my confusion around the song was just that it wasn't Decepticon. So in fairness, I mean, maybe it was a better song than I gave it credit for, but I also did think it was a bit of a, I don't know how well known it was to the audience who were there. I mean, they seemed to love it, but
Yeah, I guess it didn't seem hard. You know, it didn't
yeah,
seem hard enough to me. Like, obviously, the lyrics were quite, I guess, like a little bit hardcore, but the song itself, like, I mean, they've done well previously. Like, it's been like a heavy rock sort of vibe throughout the whole thing, and like the song to
Mhm.
me didn't really seem like that. Like, the lyrics were like rock, but the song itself just seemed a bit weak. Maybe I don't know what the word is. Like, it wasn't hard enough. It was like,
Yeah, I think it's hard for you in the audience if you didn't necessarily know the song to like really like jump into the rhythm of it.
yeah,
Um,
exactly, yeah,
because I think like it was, like still really fun song. Like the lyrics were pretty cool, but yeah, it didn't. I don't know. You'd almost for if you're maybe that's why parts of the performance felt awkward because basically more of what they could do was word based more than necessarily like really kind of like really being able to like jam along to some kind of like riff or something.
yeah, exactly. I think you made a good point there. I don't know, like it just didn't seem like the ideal choice to me. But what do I know, you know?
Mhm.
So back to deliberations. So I've written a few notes down, but like, what do you think?
I mean, I think we started covering bits of it anyhow before. I think that's really when I noticed Victoria looking amazing. Like when I really, really got it.
Mm.
I really loved. I think actually, I mean, I love Vanda anyway, so Vanda was always going to be a high point for me. But I think I prefer. I think Vanda for me was the most fun part of the celebration. Like it was Vanda's little thing about bitch's wig being so dry that it used to be Waterworld,
Yeah, that was a good joke.
but
That was a good
and I
joke.
was
I
like
like
that.
how proud he was as well of his joke. You could just tell. He was like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
nailed it."
yeah.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, I thought Bitch's thing about video game influences was really interesting because I could kind of see parts of the games that Bitch might have been influenced. And I think
yeah,
that's when I maybe thought like, maybe that's why I love Bitch's character so much. Like maybe it
interesting.
reminds me of things I've played. Yeah. How about for
How
you?
because obviously that's the thing. 'Cause obviously, I'm a massive gamer. Like I never really got the sort of heavy video game vibe from her, to be honest. Like I think, but the thing is, she's obviously a true gamer because she gets it. Like a lot of people look down on gamers as like like the typical stereotype and like with certain things. But she's like, look, I had like a tough time, and like I could come back and lose myself in these video game characters who were super powerful and awesome. Like that's the sort of experience I had. I think a lot of gamers who are like true gamers had that sort of experience and connection with the medium. Um, so I thought that was really cool, and I like that she said that and sort of put that experience out there for people to sort of understand her a bit better. But I never really got the references myself, apart from obviously in the photo challenge. Off the top of my head, I can't really think of any other times, any other
Hmm.
challenges. Oh, cool, she reminds me of a game character.
Yeah,
I think,
same
like I
here.
said, I think. Go on.
Oh, sorry. Because for me, yeah, this was the only one that I could think of that struck me as being a video game kind of character. And when she said it, this look made a lot more sense. But then, I couldn't necessarily think of any back ones because a lot of her other looks. I mean, that's partly to her credit because they've been so varied.
That's true. They have been
Um,
very varied.
but yeah, I wouldn't necessarily have got that from her at first. But I'm glad to know that. It makes me like her more,
Yeah.
actually.
No, I agree completely. She seems like again. I think I've said it last episode, but she's the person I like the most in terms of personality throughout the show. I think like the
Mhm.
way she's dealt with the flack she's faced from the other queens has been really admirable, and I think she's like seems very genuine and sweet. So I think she's like an awesome person. Like she's the one I most want to hang out with out of all the girls on the show. Um,
Hmm.
But so I thought it was on this sort of note. I think it's interesting that Vander just said outright that he's like Bitch is his favorite.
Hmm.
And also, I surprised by that because it isn't like her drag aesthetic is very different to Vander's. I was surprised he didn't choose a Bora because that seems more aligned to with his drag character.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, but I almost wonder if that's partly why, because Abora was saying, Vanda was saying that he was that she was looking for Abora to just do that next level, to take it to that next level, and then I think basically if Abora had been able to do that, at least in Vanda's eyes, I feel like she would have been top Vanda, because yeah, like you said, I think there's a very similar, they're speaking a very similar language, I think.
Mm.
But I also thought that was really nice, because I feel like although Bitch has been getting a lot of love, I also feel like, but not that Bitch is underrated, but I feel like I think it was a lot easier to discard some things that Bitch has done when actually they've been really clever um and very good. So I was glad to see Vanda do that, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's all like he seems like, you know, like he's been on it sort of thing. Like he seems he's thought out his views on the Queens. He seems to have, you know, well-rounded views on the Queens. Like I did respect what he was saying for sure. I guess I was just a bit surprised. Again, I feel like this is quite like a little bit typical of my view, like with Drag Race and other things as well. Is like I don't know what other people's opinion is, but what other people's opinions are. Sorry, but I get like the impression from the judges and the other queens that like no one's that impressed with Abora. But I said for me, she's been the one I've been rooting for most of the season, really, if not all of the season. So I don't know, like I mean, obviously she gets eliminated this episode. Just a bit of a shame that no one like really had her back. Even the Boulay brother who backed
Yeah.
her last episode. I can't remember what he said exactly, but he's like, I sort of see what you mean now, or something. I can't remember. Like it seemed like even he had
Yeah.
lost like his sort of what's the
Yeah.
word? My brain's gone dead. Like
Kind
enthusiasm
of.
for her. You
Yeah,
know, it's sort of a shame.
because the Boulay brother said something about having a Bora in her heart, right? And that kind of like having a nice little place for them. But yeah, and I think that's maybe been the turning point of just being like, okay, now you're top four, you know, are you able to kind of really turn it up to 11 for this? And I mean that's the thing. If there is like an all stars version of
But did anyone
Dracula or
turn up to 11?
something,
That's the frustrating part for me.
yeah, that's true. It's true, because I think actually in the extermination challenge, Abora really started to show that like she was in it. Um, like she started going for blood. I'm like, yes, come on, like this is, um, but it's almost a little too late at that point, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, interesting. I don't disagree. I don't disagree with what you and other, you know, the judges etc. have said necessarily. It's just I
Mhm.
don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
I think she's great. I would have really loved to have seen Abora really pull it out a little bit earlier and really be in the top three now as a strong contender, because I think Abora deserved that. I think Abora could have definitely got there.
I do think she was too in her own head, sort of thing,
Yeah.
and she could have done better potentially in some of the challenges for sure. But it's just like, okay, I can't think of a good example. But Pearl, okay, Pearl, for example, in season 7, like
Mhm.
same thing for her. Like she was in her head quite a bit during the show, but even when you're in your head, you're not performing 100%. Like your 90% is still like easily good enough to
Mhm.
like succeed, in my opinion. I guess it's the same for me with Abora. Like I'm sure she could have done better, but she still blew it out the park for me, hit it out the park for
Mhm.
me. Whatever the saying is. Um, I suppose I've got one other thing to say about the deliberation, and we'll move on. But yeah, I thought I wrote down. Oh yeah, James let one of the Boulet brothers borrow his fan. Sneaky bitch. I was getting like flashbacks to Roxy lending Alaska her top for All Stars 2.
Yeah.
Like yeah, exactly. I don't know. It seems a bit sneaky. Just like I bet she's like hovering around the Boulets, like, oh, do you need a fan? Do you need some Listerine? Got some salt here if you need it. Like I don't know.
Yeah. Kind of, yeah, like, oh, I can't, one of these people is really talented and the other one lent me this fan. So
Exactly right.
yeah.
Clever. I respect it. I'm here for it.
Mhm.
So what did you think of the extermination challenge? Yeah, elimination. What was it?
Extermination?
No,
Yeah.
because yeah. So what's the actual thing where someone actually gets exterminated?
Oh, um, how do you mean? Like,
Because like surely the part where I think you're right, it is called extermination, right? But the part where someone actually gets exterminated, i.e., Bora in this episode,
oh,
that's extermination.
yeah, true. Yeah, I don't actually, yeah, let's call it the extermination challenge and the extermination clip
Okay,
for
yeah,
now.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
What did you think of the extermination challenge?
I at first I was kind of a bit like, oh, okay. I don't know. I wasn't necessarily that excited about the idea of it at first. I know, which I don't know why, but actually, as it got into it, I thought I really loved how it was shot. I really loved that they went for these kind of slow-mo stylized kind of fight sequences, particularly because I think I wrote down a few notes on some of these things. Like I thought Abora was hilarious for all of it. That she kind of fight and then did this whole kind of like tongue thing, and then be like kind of like, come on, like fight me, bitch. It's kind of wonderful. And then I loved that like bitch actually thought she was in a video game at this point. I think like bitch transformed into Bayonetta and like very like,
Yeah.
because I kind of got this like I felt like bitch was kind of going for these like weird like kick lunge things and then like turning, and like you can imagine if bitch had like pistols like Bayonetta, or like whatever the weapon is that Bayonetta has, well, bayonet probably, the because it's kind of a gun and there's a sword element to what Bayonetta does as well, right? There's like a little, as part of the combos anyway, and it's kind of kicking and all this anyway, but I felt like at that point the bitch thought that she was Bayonetta, which I was totally here for.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I thought sorry,
go on.
I thought that Victoria and James were hungry, like they.
Yeah, I got that as well. I think that was sort of the main point of the challenge, really, was to show that. It's interesting. I just wanted to say before we move on too far, like I had the complete opposite thing for you. When I heard what the challenge was going to be, I'm like, cool, like a fight, like it's going to be hardcore. I'm into it. It's going to be like that, wrestling fight in season 1 where it was like hardcore, like people were getting fully beaten up. But I was also confused. I'm like, but they can't really have like a fight like that because they're going to get hurt and there's going to be restrictions in place. Like it's not going to be good. I was confused to how they're actually going to do it. Then when I saw how it's done with foam bats, I was just bored at that point. I'm like it looked super fun. I'm like, oh my god, I'd absolutely love to do this, but there seemed like no real element of danger to it whatsoever. But I was obviously proven wrong because Victorious chipped a couple of teeth, which I thought was like, that still shocks me. Like we saw, I know it's in slow-mo, but like when you hit them with the bats bent backwards. Like there can't have been that much force behind it. Like watching it, there was just no real, like no one seemed like they were getting hurt. Like when they get hit by the bats, like no one looked like they were getting hurt. Like just like in terms of the bat bending, but also in terms of like their reaction to it. Like no one gave a shit when they get hit around the head with this bat. Like it's to me, it's more like wrestling, where it's like they had to like, it's all about the performance in the show. And then I think some of the queens did well, like Abora, for example, and Bitch, in terms of like the characterization of the moment and like wrestling style. Like, I like that element of it, but to me, I was just like, again, I feel like I've been really negative this episode, and I apologize, but I was just quite bored watching the fight. Like I wasn't even like checking my phone or anything. I was just like looking away at times. I'm like, I was literally just like staring over there. I'm like, oh shit, I'm not even watching it. And I'm like, I was watching, I'm like, I can see why I'm not really watching it. Like again, I think the cinematic angles were cool, but again, it was quite long. Like it went on for quite a while.
That was my issue.
Nothing really happened to me. For me, it was just a bit like, I don't know. Like I say, it didn't seem like I watched like a bit of MMA, like with my dad and stuff, and like that's obviously hardcore. Like stuff in the cage and that, and it's like I don't know. Like it just seemed. And compared for Dragula, like I think some extermination challenges have been super hardcore, like the needles, the tattoo. Like most of the extermination challenges I've been super impressed with, and in the first season as well. So I was expecting like this is the last extermination challenge is going to be mega hardcore, but it seemed like the least, like even paintballing seemed more painful than what they had to do this episode. So like I don't know, I was just quite disappointed with it and a bit, I don't know, like I don't know, I wasn't really here for it, like literally.
Yeah. I did think it was a bit strange at times, because definitely, I think the length of it started to kind of get to me a little, because I was a bit like, okay, so are we going to move on to Bitch in a Bora now? But I think at the same time it was an interesting challenge. I mean, in fairness, I found some of the extreme challenges a bit weird. Like the needles one, I found less bad because it wasn't necessarily permanent, in the sense that those would probably heal. Maybe you'd have slight scarring, but it might not be too bad. The tattoo one I thought was a little bit out of order, actually, in the sense that I was just like, I don't really feel like you should enter a competition and come out of it actually marked physically, like with something permanent from it. I don't know. For me, that I was just a bit like, no, I don't really feel like that's. I know. I
agree, I think that's what made it cool, though. Like what made it so punk. Like I don't know. Like I think the tattoos they eventually got were terrible, but like I think it'd be awesome to come out of. I mean, if you're doing a show like that, like you're going to be into tattoos and shit. Like to come out of a show with a tattoo you got from the show of like a massive time in your life and stuff. Like I think it's cool. I get why you feel the way you do, and I felt a bit like that watching it. But I said some people like that's the sort of like level of like punkness. It's like whole point is extermination challenges are supposed to shock you. They're supposed to be stuff you don't see and don't expect. But for me, this challenge was more like it felt more like a mini challenge in Drag Race, where it's like there's like faux sort of like drama and faux like they could get hurt, they could potentially trip over and like snap a nail. It was more like that for me. This time, I don't know.
No, absolutely. And I think what I actually enjoyed most about the fight was actually the moment just after where they had their little like bits to camera, because although they're a little bit cheesy, I did really love Abora talking about banana jizz, and like I really loved how like weirdly wild they were in their eyes. Like Victoria was kind of like Victoria looked like she just had like way too much speed.
That was really cool.
Yeah. Because Victoria's just like completely buzzing for it. And I really hope that Victoria takes that into the final, because I feel like actually Victoria needs that, like we were saying earlier, like needs.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
In the final. Because if she has that kind of killer instinct in the final bit, which presumably if it's similar to last year, you know, we'll have that kind of, they have to produce several looks, they have to give a kind of performance, like a solo performance that's really thought out. And I feel like that could be where Victoria really steps it up, and Bitch too, and James will probably as well. So I mean, it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, in regards to that, like I think it's the final of the top three are good in that respect, in terms of they're all going to be like they're all proper thirsty for it, hungry for it, you know. So I think it will be intense. I just hope they have the content this time to sort of show that intensity. Whereas this time I felt like in both the challenge and extermination challenge and the looks, like I feel like they were quite sort of constricted in terms of what they could have got away with the formula of the show.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I want something like all out next episode, like something hardcore. Like I suppose the finale to the first season, which was super extreme in my opinion. Like hopefully less gross than that, but something that extreme where like if they are as hungry as they all seem to be, like let them show it in like the most extreme ways they can, I guess. Even if it does shock me and make me feel uncomfortable. That's sort of what I want from the show.
Because I remember last year, that's what really stepped up my love of Melissa B. Fierce. Because actually, I hadn't really necessarily. I hadn't necessarily rated a lot of what she'd done before. Like I hadn't necessarily got it, and then that final performance, you were like, shit, like
the nun.
That was incredible. Yeah, the nun with the kind of was it anal beads?
Yeah, no, like the cross, like the full cross.
Yeah,
she had up there, I think.
Yeah.
But also I know, right? So I feel like it's still shocking now, and that's what I want from Dragula. And same with who's the bigger girl in the finale? What was her name again?
Meatball or Frankie?
Yeah, Frankie Doom, right?
I couldn't remember which one came third and which one came fourth.
People got eliminated earlier.
Okay.
But she didn't really show like the glamour side of it, and then like for the glamour part, I thought she looked great, like really beautiful. So that was again like another way for her to showcase a different side to her. Yeah, so hopefully something like that happens in the final episode where they can all sort of like show their true talent in you know the best ways they can.
Who do you reckon will win?
It's tricky because like I really was championing Abora, and she was one I really. Again, it's not like necessarily I think she deserves to win, but she would have made the finale so much more interesting for me. So it would have been someone I would have really been behind and really excited to see what they did. And I think the final queens are good. I'm just not like in love with any of them. I think Bitch should probably win. I think all the judges love her. I think the audience loves her. I think she's good personally, but I don't think she's outstanding in any particular way. Personally, I think James is, in terms of, I think her looks are outstanding and her performance has always been great as well. So I would hope James will win, and she's the one I probably would most want to win. But I think Bitch will win. How about you?
See, I actually have the opposite, where I think James will win, but I want Bitch to win.
Interesting, but you must admit, like the judges, like, and I think just generally, and the way it's been, maybe not the way it's been edited as such, but like I feel like the show is really like it's a bit of the Bitch show, you know?
Yeah,
featuring other queens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like even in sorry, I just dropped my phone. Even in that last little part with the deliberation, I mean, that's also partly why I thought Bitch would win the challenge, because the way they were talking about Bitch was like she's perfect, she's incredible, she looks like Linda Evangelista.
I was gonna say that, yeah.
Model, like,
that's one.
Like, did she stone that wedding dress? No, it doesn't really follow. We can't really keep that going. Anyway, but I just got the sense that they were just like, she's incredible. Like, we love you. And then they're kind of like, okay, James, you do win this, and like the photo. I mean, James's photo was incredible. So so I kind of got that, but at the same time, I was like, I mean, I would have given that to bitch, but then also I wasn't there. So like, yeah, I don't know. I thought, I do feel like the judges love her, and in a similar way to how they kind of loved Abora, and even in Abora's like less good moments, they were kind of propping her, not necessarily propping her up, but giving her a bit of extra praise and kind of keeping her there to be able to let her show more. I do feel like, especially early on, that happened a bit to bitch, and I feel like her arc. They keep on mentioning her arc and how she's shown real growth, whereas James has not necessarily surprised them. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the final, whether James will do something that surprises them, or whether Bitch can oust her by showing that she's grown even more.
Yeah, but I suppose like if they're both pretty even, I really think Bitch will win. But
Yeah.
obviously there's a chance that one of them could pull far ahead of the other one.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to see what happens.
It'd be
But
interesting.
I doubt.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say that I doubt Victoria is going to win just because of the reasons I said earlier on. I don't think that she doesn't have a talent for it. I just don't think she will win.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. Like, it's really funny that we're talking about the top three, and we're just like, yeah, so James or bitch, like, and I mean, like, she could still surprise us. But then I kind of also felt that a little bit last year with Frankie, where I very much was like, okay, this is Vanda's to win or lose in some ways, and Melissa could very much be hot on her heels and could scalp her in the last moment. But I think. I mean, I would really love for, if nothing else, for Victoria to be able to give an incredible performance that really justifies why she's in that top three. I mean, she already has justified it by being excellent, but I would really love her to kind of end on that high.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, I'd love that. So do you think the right person got eliminated?
Unfortunately, yes, for this moment. Overall, I would have loved Abora to be in that top three. I feel like maybe for based on the last few episodes, I think it maybe made sense for Abora because she's had a bit of a rocky go of it the last couple of episodes. But aside from that, I mean, I would have loved to have seen her in the top. I mean, in fairness, I would have also loved to have seen Dali up in the top. So, I mean, it's been quite a strong field near the top this year. So, it's kind of difficult to know. But I would have really loved to have seen Abora or Dali or Disasterina make it a bit further up. But then also at the same time, I mean, how would you pick? Who would you get rid of instead? It's such a crowded.
That's what I was thinking. But I feel again, I still feel the same about. I think Abora's included in that. I feel like no one was significantly weaker than anyone else. So I feel like if Abora didn't go, who would I get rid of? I feel like if Abora was still there, who would I get rid of? Because I don't feel like she was weaker than the others personally.
Yeah.
Challenge, and it's done on like a per challenge basis. So I know for me, that's just how I feel about it. In fact, I think personally, in terms of what appeals to me, I think she was the strongest, especially aesthetically, which was over half the challenge. So I think again, I think her uniqueness makes her stand out for me. So in her performance, if I was watching that show live, I would have been most interested in her and what she was doing because she is different to the others, I guess. So I don't know. I mean, but that's just my personal opinion. I'm not saying it was a wrong decision. I'm just saying that's I'm disappointed in it personally. But yeah, so I was just thinking we should do our. Oh wait, so what do you think? Just really quick, what do you think of her actual elimination?
The little video. I thought I kind of liked the kind of kitschiness of it. I thought the acting. I mean, it was a bit strange. I kind of wanted like more things actually melting, which I guess is difficult to show. Like, I mean, that would be really difficult.
It's always like that. Like, I mean, they're getting stabbed and like the knife's not going anywhere near them and blood's just appearing out. Like, they're all like ridiculous.
Yeah, and I do love that kind of kitschiness. I would kind of love to have had almost like, as she was melting, like this little kind of pink stream of like goo or something. Like, even if it looked really like cheesy, and not
that would be cool.
like, or something like that. But at the same time, I thought it was great.
So, I love her look though. I guess it's the same with her like confessional look as well. Like they're both a lot more colourful than what she normally goes for.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
I thought that really suited her. I'd actually love to see Abora do more of those kind of looks.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was super cool.
Mm.
But yeah, we should do our CUNTs of the week. Although I think it's gonna be difficult for me because again, I feel like they're all so even.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's gonna be tricky. We could skip it, I guess. But do you have like strong feelings about?
Me,
We
I
should do
could.
it. We should do it, right?
Yeah, let's try it. So charisma, I'll probably put as bitch, just because I feel like I think I put maybe bitch there last time, but bitch is just
Because you
fun
love
to. I do love her. She's not quite Disasterina, but she's great. So I'd probably put her as the charisma.
Did you see? I popped up on my recommended Disaster Arena and Bitch did a video together, like discussing one of the
Ooh,
episodes, like we're doing. So
no
you
way.
should watch that. It's good.
I need to check that out.
I'll try and find it. See charisma. Does it count as charisma? Like, ironically, after everything we said as well, Victoria. Like, I feel like both in terms of like she was one of the most interesting to me in the extermination challenge, and also her reaction to the judges' critiques. I thought
Yeah.
was quite endearing. Like the way she behaved there. I felt like, yeah, like again, like, I still stand by what I said. I feel like, she doesn't have a strong. She isn't showing a lot of her personality, but like what I did see of her this episode, I liked. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Does that count?
I'd agree with that.
Okay, cool. So uniqueness.
I'll probably give that to Abora based on the kind of look and kind of everything that was going on with that. I think, like, kind of basically like we discussed earlier.
Yeah, totally same. I'll give you uniqueness to Bora as well. So nerve.
I'm going to go with Victoria for this one, based on the kind of hunger in the kind of elimination challenge. I was actually thinking as we were talking the extermination challenge, as we were talking about it, isn't it really funny that like how many queens in RuPaul's Drag Race season 9 got injured on the cheerleading challenge? You're like, oh god, like Charlie Hydes and Eureka doing like this like
That would be hilarious.
fight to the death. Like Charlie would have just been like shattered into pieces of porcelain on the other side.
Yeah,
It'd been great.
We should start a GoFundMe for it.
Yes.
So what's his name? Nerve. Okay, I'm gonna give it. I probably gave this to our last episode as well. But James for still coming for Abora at the beginning of the episode and saying that she's grown to not be a bitch when all we've seen of her is her being a bitch. So yeah, she gets nerve from me for that.
And talent, I know it sounds really bitchy to leave James out of the other CNTs. I'm going to give the talent to Vanda because, as I will always do, because I love Vanda, and mostly for that joke about the water.
Oh, that joke was amazing. I totally get that.
That was perfect.
Yeah, I completely agree, 100%. Although I'm going to give it to the Boulay brother with the like gruffer voice, the taller one, because like, he emceed all the like events. I thought he did a good job emceeing. I was pretty impressed.
That must be pretty scary to go up there in front of that crowd and just. I mean, obviously they've had a lot of practice, but I mean, as they mentioned themselves, they're presenting something very different to what the average person there would be seeing.
But what I thought was interesting is they said, like, one of them said they came back there, like it's great to come back here again.
Oh yeah, good point.
So I thought that was interesting because I guess they must have been there before. But it makes sense to me because of like the punk nature of what they do. But yeah, I was just like, I don't know, I've been super impressed. Like I think I was a bit unsure on the Boulets the first season. But I really like them this season. I think they're super cool.
Same. I think as well the first season, because of the kind of audio things as well, it like the fun of their kitschiness was kind of literally drowned out by the sound of the fridge running in the back. So I'm really glad that now actually we're able to see like their workout video thing. I mean, I know I mentioned it last time, but that workout video like segment that they did at the beginning of one of the episodes, I just thought was incredible.
Yeah.
It was so cheesy. It was so.
I get it now. Like I didn't get it before. I get it now.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah, and like so I guess that's the end of the recap. Like, do you have any like final thoughts on anything?
Not particularly. I think we've covered most of it. I'm pretty excited just to see what they bring next episode. I hope it's not another double, because I feel like actually the stage show, if we have like a good solid 5 minutes of each queen, that's actually enough in terms of their stage performance, or maybe 5 to 10 each. That's, I mean, enough.
Well, if there's more content, like I would be happy for a double because I don't want it to end. But I want which is episode 8, so it'd be weird if it's 9 episodes. I think it probably will be 10, to be honest. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a double, but it just needs the content to back it up. I don't think it's going to take that much.
True. Plus, we have the reunion next episode from what we saw on the thing, don't
Oh,
we?
I
And we
didn't
have
watch
all
the
the
previews. That's running tight on time.
okay. So all of the queens are going to be there together.
Oh, that's the same as the first season, though, isn't it? Because they all talked about
Yeah.
like who they think should win and why, and it was like a massive bitch fest.
Yeah, so that should be interesting because it'll be interesting to see who holds their nerve and whether actually all of that will backfire on James, for example.
Yeah. Oh, but it'll
Um,
definitely be 2 episodes then, because we've got all of
oh, that's
like
true.
that, like bitchy stuff, and then we've got the actual stage performance. I'm guessing it'd be something
Yeah,
massive, like
that's a
Free
really
Looks
good point.
again. So I think it'd be. I'm sure it'd be 2 episodes, which I don't
That'd be
mind
good.
personally.
I'd be cool with that.
Cool.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like we covered everything.
Mhm.
But like always, yeah, we continue the discussion in the comments. So if you have anything else you want to add or anything you disagree with, let us know in a polite and respectful way, and we'll chat it out in the comments. Yeah, like I said last episode, if you want us to go back and watch the previous episodes of definitely this season at least, maybe season 1 could be interesting now watching it in retrospect, having like live discussions. We'd be happy to do that. Also, we should probably do it. It's because it's approaching Christmas and everything's a bit weird. We're doing it like mid-afternoon on a Thursday, but we can schedule them at more convenient times as well if you guys want to get involved live. But yeah, we keep it all going down below, if you know what I'm saying. And yeah, let us know what you think and what you want us to do next. We're happy to do it.
Yeah, smash it. I'm really looking forward to hearing what people thought about this episode actually as well, because I feel like it's kind of an interesting one now that we've got our finalists to really see who
Yeah,
people
I
are starting
agree.
to root for.
Yeah, I totally agree. Cool. So yeah, I'll say it again. I actually remembered. Yes, if you comment down below, like and subscribe, please. I think that's a good thing. That's what YouTubers always say. So I think that's good. I actually am really happy because I'm over 850 subscribers, like getting close to 1,000. That'd be awesome to get 1,000. So yeah, let me know like what sort of content you want me to do, and then hopefully that will draw more people in, and then I can start making that money, yo. So that's my life goal from now on. But most importantly, I put my seasonal bush there. Well, that's literally what it's called. I bought it to mark the Christmas spirit. This is a special Christmas episode. I just remembered. You're welcome.
It's so
Um,
festive.
I know it's so festive. I'm wearing a jumper, which is Christmassy, sort of. It's too big for me, but whatever. It's comfy. But yeah, I guess this will be the final video before Christmas. So have a great Christmas, everyone. Come join us in the new year for more drag stuff and other stuff as well. And yeah, just like I sincerely hope you all have a nice Christmas period or Hanukkah or whatever it is you're doing with your lives.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Cool. That's a good way to end. All right, cool. Bye, everyone. Love you. Have a good
Bye.
time.